Welcome to the Stadium Journey podcast. We are proud to be part of the HIAC Talk Radio Network, and thanks for joining us tonight. We hope your holidays were merry and bright. Little Bing Crosby there for you. Stadium Journey is the internet's leader in stadium journeys for the traveling sports fan. Check out all of our 2,300 plus stadium, ballpark, and arena reviews on our website, stadiumjourney.com. Yes, there's 2,300. There's more than 2,300. We actually counted them. And you can follow us on our social media channels. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're on Instagram at Stadium Journey. And the Stadium Journey podcast and all of HIAC Talk Radio's content can be found at thebradyhicks.com or look us up on VOC Nation at iTunes Radio. You can follow the HIAC Talk Radio Network on Twitter at HIAC. Watch your sports talk, then just listen to it. All of the HIAC Talk Radio podcasts are now available on YouTube for your viewing pleasure at youtube.com/DanLaw83. The DanLaw83 will make sense in a minute. And Stadium Journey now has our own YouTube channel, and soon you'll find the video podcast there as well. And now, let me introduce our starting lineup. We've got Dave Cotney. You can follow him at ProFan9. Mark Viquez can be followed at Ballpark Hunter. You can follow our producer, the above-average comedian, Dan Colachico, at DanLaw83. And I am Paul Baker. You can follow me at PuckmanRI. And when teams relocate. So, subject very close to my heart coming up this summer, but we'll get into that in a minute. First, we want to start out with a quick recap of where we've been since our last show. That was a month ago, so we may have some interesting trips for you. Mark, do you want to lead us off?
Yeah, sure. I just went to the Indy Fuel game. That was Teacher Appreciation Night. So if you want to get people to come to your game, give them free tickets. So anybody who had a teaching ID got in for free. And was a light crowd. IU was playing in their bowl game down in Florida. So I think a lot of people were watching that because how many times you get IU to play in a bowl game? And I think we'll hear more about that from Dave in a few. So the thing about the Indiana Farmers Coliseum is that it was built in 1939, and then in 2012 it went under a $53 million renovation for 2 years. And the result is a very nice arena, but still feels like it's 1939 on the inside in certain spots. The upper deck is not wraparound. You enter through the box office lobby area. You have to go upstairs. There are parts of the main concourse around the ends that are very thin. And when you have a packed house there, and they do get packed houses for certain games, it can become cumbersome moving around the building. So I'm a little bit indifferent about the experience there. When I was there last Thursday, there wasn't a huge crowd. You moved around very easily, and it was quite enjoyable. You got to see wherever the heck you wanted. But when you have Chicago Blackhawk night or Star Wars night or all-you-can-eat Nickelodeon night, good luck moving around there because it can become a pain in the butt. And it can also become a pain in the butt at the fairgrounds when you have other events going on, trying to park and weave in and out of the parking lots there because that's convoluted as well. So I like the old arena. I like the restoration. I love the renovations. I'm just, it's just when you get a packed house there, it's not one of the most pleasant places to watch a game because of the crowds and the limited space you move around. So, but Thursday night, maybe a couple thousand, 3,000 people there. Very nice place to watch a game when it's those conditions. I don't know if you agree with me, Paul. You were there last year or earlier this year. No, last year.
Yeah, about a year ago.
Yeah,
it's almost to the date. Yeah. Pretty much agree with everything you said. It's funny, like you mentioned, it's part very modern and part very old because of the renovations they did. But yeah, not an arena you can just take a good lap around. And I was there on a pretty busy night, and it was very tough to get around. But I enjoyed my time there.
Yeah, like I said, it's before the renovations, it was a junky old barn, and it's completely different looking. I mean, they did an amazing job at it. So I'm glad they didn't knock it down. I hate when they knock old buildings down. But yeah, it's a still enjoyable visit. The fans are great. I mean, Indianapolis is not a hockey town, but there is a dedicated group of individuals who really make it a lot of fun going there. There's a lot of cowbell going on, and they know they're hockey too. They're not there just for the fun. They're there to watch the game and cheer on these guys. So the other game I went to was in Hinsdale, Illinois, which is 17 miles west of Chicago. It's a basketball gym for high school, and it's home to the Red Devils. I happened to be able to check out a basketball tournament. There's a lot of these basketball tournaments that take place during the holiday times in Chicago, and I think they take place in other states as well. And this is a gym that was built in 1952. It's gone through some renovations itself, but it's a classic facility that still looks very sharp. It seats about a little over 3,000 now. Plenty of red banners hanging up in the rafters, plenty of red ribbon draped from the ceiling. And it was a fun little cozy place to watch a basketball game. So it's been one of those facilities I was trying to get to for several years. Well, not several years, a couple years. And finally had a chance to watch tournament basketball. $8 for the whole day, cheap food. And like I said, you're in this part of the Chicago suburbs where you're not too far away from a good stop to get an Italian beef or a Chicago hot dog. So there was I forget the name of the place, the pizzeria I went to after the game that was a couple miles south. They had $2 drafts, and they had some pizza specials. So that was pretty exciting because I don't think I would have been out there if it wasn't for the gym. So just two places. I tried to get to a few more facilities when I was in Chicago. It just scheduling didn't work out that way. So I have to make a return trip later on this month. But that's the life of a stadium traveler.
Nice. So, Dave, I'm going to skip you because you are our big trip winner this week.
Big trip winner.
We'll give you the floor, but I'll recap my trips really quick. Not a whole lot on my agenda either. Went out to Springfield a few weeks back and caught a doubleheader at the Mass Mutual Center in the afternoon. Saw the American International College Yellow Jackets. Now that's a mouthful of a name. Call them AIC for short. And then in the evening we saw the Springfield Thunderbirds play the Providence Bruins. So a great doubleheader for us. What was kind of remarkable, we've talked about the Mass Mutual Center before, so I won't get into that too much. Springfield has gone way. That's Six City in the AHL, so they had the Indians for years. They didn't always play downtown. They played out at the Exposition Center, I believe it was, farther out by the highway. But in the Mass Mutual Center, what was interesting is AIC moved to the Mass Mutual Center, I'd say 3 seasons ago, maybe 4. But if I remember my dates correctly, I think it was 3 years. They did that. They used to play at a community rink called the Olympia Ice Center, and they were annually last in the nation in attendance. They would be lucky to get 100 people there. All right, Dave, we're going to skip you because you are the big trip winner this week, and my segment will be much shorter than yours. So a couple weeks ago, I went up to Springfield, caught a hockey doubleheader, started with the American International College Blue Jackets, not Blue Jackets. I'm watching the Bruins play. The Yellow Jackets. Different kind of B, I guess. So call them the AI Jackets for short. American International College. Kind of a mouthful. And then at night, I watched the Springfield Thunderbirds play the Providence Bruins. We talked about Mass Mutual Center before. Won't get into that too much. Downtown Springfield, really nice now. The MGM Grand Casino is open right across the street from the arena and the convention center. So it's brought a lot more stuff to do downtown. There's some restaurants now. Springfield was never one of my favorite cities in the AHL, but I found some places I really like. So in between games, we caught lunch at Red Rose Pizzeria, which is like 2 blocks away from the arena. Great pizza. If you're ever in Springfield, that's the place to go. I actually, funny little story. We were walking to go have lunch. Pam needed to use the bathroom desperately. Sorry, Pam. So she ducked into the casino to use the bathroom while she was doing her thing. I said, down, won $20. She came out. I had $20. I said, let's go. Lunch is on me. So AIC has moved. They used to play at a little community rink, the Olympia Ice Center, which was in West Springfield, he tried to say. They moved downtown, which is actually closer to the school. Been there for 3 or 4 years now. They used to be dead last in attendance nationwide for NCAA hockey. And the move downtowns have been good. The crowds are bigger, not significantly bigger. They draw 250, 300 people, which in a 7,000 seat arena doesn't look like much, but it's a big improvement over, a couple dozen. Very cheap. You can park for free on the streets on the weekends in Springfield, and tickets were like $10. So if you like Division I college hockey, it's a good place to go. The Falcons at night had a sellout crowd. The big draw that night was Leslie David Baker. Stanley from The Office was doing an appearance, so got to say hi to him, take a picture with him, and that was about all he did. And they tied in The Office nicely throughout the game, so that was fun. Then after Springfield, I got to go to the Mohegan Sun Arena in Uncasville, Connecticut. Got some tickets for opening night for the New England Black Wolves. Probably the third or fourth time I've been there. Mohegan Sun Arena is a beautiful arena. It's about 10,000 seats, so it's not a huge arena, but it's very, very visually appealing. They made it to blend in with the casino, and it's supposed to have like a forest theme, and it really pulls it off very nicely. It's got dark colors, and it's a nice place to look around. Now we'll talk about lacrosse a little more in a couple weeks. We're going to have a guest on from the Boston Cannons. But one thing about the indoor, we won't get into indoor versus outdoor right now, but the indoor game I went to, they had music playing throughout it. Very different kind of experience, especially for an old fart like me. So I don't know what you guys think about having music playing all through the game, but I mean, I got used to it, and they played good music. So a lot of 80s. It's, a lot of stuff you knew. It wasn't kind of weird or too loud.
Yeah, blame the MISL, Major Indoor Soccer League, for that, because when they debuted about 40 years ago, it was just rock music throughout the whole game, and I think the Major Indoor Lacrosse League picked that up in the late 80s when they were formed. So I remember a lot of indoor lacrosse games with Welcome to the Jungle being played, the iconic arena thumper.
So, yeah, I was given tickets, and they actually gave me front row seats right behind the net, so the seats were fantastic. And you could hear all the players swearing at each other. It was nice. Black Wolves played the expansion New York of the team, and went out to lacrosse is a game of runs, but this was a crazy run. They scored 13 goals in a row at one point, which is pretty nuts. And then they held on at the end to win. Then won comfortably, but it became a closer game. So that was Mohegan Sun Arena. And then after that, I went to lovely Danbury, Connecticut, for another hockey doubleheader. I saw the Connecticut Whale of the NWHL, and then at night saw the Danbury Hat Tricks of the Federal League. And again, this was a night and day kind of situation. The Whale game, which was played in the afternoon, had about 100 people there maybe, so it was kind of a disappointing crowd. And the Connecticut Whale right now have not won a game all year. They played the Boston Pride, who have not lost a game all year. Game went to a shootout. Boston pulled it out in the shootout 2-1. So very bare bones compared to what we do at the Pride. There's no kind of promotion, no kind of noise. Very lackluster game day presentation by comparison. So, but it was fun to see, and I was sporting a Boston Pride jersey, and the girls all saw me, and so that was pretty cool. But then we went and had some dinner, and then went back for the Danbury Hat Tricks, and holy cow, what a difference! About 2,000 people in this 3,000 seat barn. Kind of rowdy, a lot of noise, a lot of atmosphere. It was actually a lot of fun to be at the Hat Tricks game. Now, I don't know how much we've talked about the Federal Prospects Hockey League, but it's as low as the pro entry-level league, I guess you would call it. Mm-hmm. A lot of fly-by-night franchises have passed through this league. A lot of turnover, a lot of notoriety for all the wrong reasons. But you know what? Danbury has kind of been a cornerstone franchise of this league since they entered. So it was, I got to tell you, it was a good time. For those of you who are not familiar with the story of the Danbury Ice Arena, I recommend you check out one of the reviews I did, just because I put in a lot of links. Really short. There was a businessman, I call him businessman in quotes, James Galante, who was in waste management, who had reputed ties to the mob. I say reputed now. And he purchased an expansion team for the United Hockey League back in the early 2000s. So needed a place to play. So he took this little community rink, the Danbury Ice Arena, spent like $3 million of his own money, built it up to a 3,000 seat arena, and installed his 17-year-old son as the general manager. So what did he do? They loaded the roster up with goons, with fighters, with tough guys, and just it became something out of Slapshot. The fans were nuts. They were rude. They were very intimidating. It became just something real life Slapshot. And what ended up happening is they got in trouble for violating the league salary cap. The league had a salary cap of about $200,000 at the time. They were spending about $750,000. They traveled first class coaches, stayed in fancy hotels, and this was all in like the Federal Prospects League. To end the story real quick, Galante, 2 years later, got busted on racketeering and tax evasion and a few other charges, ended up spending 6 years in jail, and the team ended up folding. But the arena is still there and has been bounced around the Federal League a few times. So check out the story. Sports Illustrated has done a story on it. The Athletic has done a story on it. ESPN, the Hollywood movie about the Danbury Trash. So stay tuned. That should be entertaining. The story is, something right out of the movie. So it should be interesting. So those were my trips the last few weeks. And I also want to welcome in our newest listener to the podcast, Lyra Rose Proliasco. She was born on the 21st of December. So that was my big news for the last few weeks. I know I may not look at people on Twitch, but yeah, I'm a grandfather now. So Dave, you're the big trip winner this week. So you went south a little bit for your Christmas break.
Yeah, definitely. Wait a second. So I asked you if you had bought the grandkid any pucks yet, and you said no.
Ew.
But you're making him listen to the podcast already.
Her? If she wants. Yeah. No, she's not listening.
Oh, well, she should.
She does not have the manual dexterity to operate a computer at this time.
Well, that's what parents are for.
Yeah, her parents probably not listening.
So, yeah, it was a big 4 weeks with my trip south included. But I had some business before that. So hit the Budweiser Gardens, home of the London Knights. Wrote a review for that you can find on Stadium Journey. It's really become kind of the gold standard, not just as an arena, but as a team. It's funny, the Dale Hunter and his brother Mark bought the Knights at the perfect time. They got a brand new arena downtown and went from basically the basement to the stratosphere. And just this past week, Dale Hunter was coaching the Team Canada at the World Juniors. And, funny how people operate. I mean, nobody in the OHL outside of London actually likes Dale Hunter because, he's Dale Hunter. And, of course, they're really good. So when Canada lost to the Russians in the round robin and lost pretty bad, they were calling for his head and Hunter should never coach for Team Canada and blah, blah, blah. Well, after they beat the Russians in the gold medal game, I don't think they're saying that anymore. But that's a good read. Check it out on Stadium Journey. Went and hit up Chrysler Center for some Michigan Wolverines basketball. Hung out with Paul Sweeney down there. Our buddy. It was good to see him. Caught a pair of games at Scotiabank Arena. So it was my annual trip for review to the Raptors and also to the Leafs. Leafs did an afternoon game on the 23rd, which was, it's really interesting. When they started the Marlies as their AHL team, they used it a lot as their promo gig, and all their charity work came out of the Marlies and whatnot, and that was how they were going to build the future. And giving Leaf tickets away to charity, like, I don't know, that didn't really seem like it was happening very often. This is to me, it's a real shift. It was a future future fans games. So kids were doing everything. There was a 6-year-old playing the organ. Oh my gosh, he was amazing. He played Clocks by Coldplay. He had it down. It was awesome. Also did a review. Actually, I haven't quite finished it yet. No, I did finish it. It's up on the website now at Callahan Hall on University of Detroit Mercy. And this is a real could-be place. So Detroit Mercy is in the Horizon League. It's not a great following. But you walk in and if it was a hockey arena, it'd be an old school hockey barn, right? Old wooden seats, about an 7,000 to 8,000 capacity. And if they ever filled that place, it would be awesome. And all they would have to do is bring back favorite son, Dick Vitale, and they'd totally fill that place because the court's named after him. He was a coach at Detroit Mercy, actually, before he went to the NBA.
I was excited to see that Terry Durod went to school there and has his number retired. One of my favorite Celtics from the 80s.
There
Last
you go.
guy in the...
There you go. Well, after that, it was south. South we went. So we stopped in Charlotte, did the full ride from Kitchener to Charlotte, stopped for the Hornets game at Spectrum Center. Still one of my favorite NBA arenas. It's just a really nice spot. And, you know, Southern hospitality, the people that work there are just so nice. It's amazing. I really enjoyed the Hornets. And then it was Florida. So it took Jackson to his very first NFL game. And I've always been very reserved about taking him into the NFL because, you know, the central area, north central, it's pretty rough crowds for NFL. I mean, Buffalo I still won't take my son to Buffalo. I wouldn't even consider taking my wife to Buffalo. No way. You know, Cleveland can be rough. Cincinnati can be rough. Pittsburgh can be rough. Detroit isn't too bad, but a lot of my experiences have been with like crowds that, you know, I can handle them, but I sure wouldn't want to take my kids there. But I have had since a few really good experiences, like Indy, my kids would have been fine at. Miami would have been fine. Tampa would have been fine. Tennessee would have been fine. So I thought, you know what, we'll give them a shot. And we went and saw the Jacksonville Jaguars at TIAA Bank Field. It's a terrible corporate names. That's a terrible corporate name. That was pretty good. I don't know if you guys saw it, tweeted it out to you. Pet Paradise. So you can bring your dog to the football game, and there's like this dog spa there. And, you know, they got the little wading pool and everything for the dogs. And literally at the other end of the stadium, there's a pool for people. So, you know, you send your dog to the pool, you go to the pool yourself, you watch the football game. It's all good. You know, considering that the Jags, you know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago were tarping off entire sections, I mean, they've come a long way. It was the last game of the season. They were out of it. They were playing the Colts. The Colts were out of it. It really meant nothing. So it wasn't a sellout or anything like that. There were plenty of empty seats, but there definitely were no tarped off sections. So that was pretty cool to see. And I'd like to see them stay in Jacksonville. So say no to London, stay in Jacksonville Jaguars.
Apropos for today's subject.
Yes. Next, it was to Jacksonville University, to the historic Swisher Gymnasium, home of the Jacksonville Dolphins. Probably one of the smallest venues. Really totally reminded me of a Canadian university venue. Holds about 2,000. You know, no students there. I think they usually average about 800 or 900, but it's really small. It could get really loud. So for like a Florida Gulf Coast game, it would be really loud in there. So that was fun. Made my first trip ever to Tallahassee. Went to the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center for some Florida State Seminoles college basketball. A really good crowd, considering, again, the students weren't there. And, you know, basketball at that time too, at a big school like that, not only were the students not there, the cheerleaders weren't there, the band wasn't there.
Nope.
Not because they were students and they were on vacation. No, they were in, I believe it was in Alabama at the bowl game where Florida State was playing. So they had the dance team was there, and they did have a small, what were they? They were the girl cheerleaders. Like there's a girls team of cheerleaders only. And then the co-eds were at the football game. So the girls team was there. There was a small band. So it was still a good time. We had fun. But I'm sure it'd be a little bit more exciting if, there were more people there and whatnot. Actually, funny, Jackson looked at the banners on there, and they had one ACC championship. And he was like, "Why is Florida State not very good? They've only won once." And like the lady beside me, who's a season ticket holder, leaned over and said, "Buddy, Duke is in our conference." So at that point, he was like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, not much in the way of championships for Florida State when you're playing in the ACC with Duke. After that, we hit the new year, and it was time for bowl games. So a bit of a surprise. We weren't going to do this. Last year, we kicked off the year going to the Citrus Bowl and had a great time. And I think it was my experience of the year last time we were here when we did reviews. So we were actually supposed to go. Well, we stayed this time. We didn't stay near Orlando. We stayed near Jacksonville. We stayed in St. Augustine. And one of my wife's absolute most favorite restaurants in the world is a chain spot that you can find throughout the South and the West called Sweet Tomatoes. It's a giant salad bar kind of place, and she absolutely loves it. So this was going to be a highlight. When we went last year, we ate at Sweet Tomatoes like 4 times in the week. So she was like, "We're going there like a ton of times." Well, there are none over by Jacksonville and St. Augustine, but there are a ton in Orlando. So we had to make the trip to Orlando, and not wanting to spend, 2 house payments on going to Disney or anything like that. The kids were going to go to the water park. Well, the kids were not excited about going to the water park, and the matchup for the Citrus Bowl came out, and it was Michigan, Alabama. Well, Jackson decided that Alabama is his team. So to the Citrus Bowl, we went. And, it was good for Michigan for a little bit. They were actually ahead by 2 at the half, and then, then it was over. Got to see future Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa on his crutches there, which I'm sure he will still have when he goes to the Dolphins. That's going to be a disaster, I'm positive. So that was the first bowl. Then the second bowl was the next day in Jacksonville at TIAA Bank Field again, and it was the Gator Bowl, and it was the Indiana Hoosiers and the Tennessee Volunteers. So I fully expected Tennessee to just rock the joint out. Those guys travel. Tennessee basketball travels. Tennessee football travels like crazy. And more than half the stadium was Tennessee. They're all wearing their orange, and they just stand out, and it was great. I had no idea what to expect from Indiana. And I must say, they traveled a lot better than I expected. For a school that, let's face it, Indiana is a basketball school. Their football success, meh. Every once in a while, they get like a Antoine Randall L. who'll come in and be amazing, and they'll get into a bowl game or whatever. But most of the time, they're on the outside looking in. You know what? They traveled pretty well, and it was a good time. And I gotta say, if you haven't been to a bowl game, it's a whole different animal. So if you ever see people wearing the opposing team's gear in their home stadium, there's always like a little bit of animosity, or in some places a lot of animosity, and it gets kind of nasty at times. A bowl game's totally different, right? Like we were walking out of Tennessee, Indiana, amazing game. Tennessee won by 1, like right in the last 2 minutes or whatever. And I have my Indiana shirt on because I have an Indiana shirt and I don't have a Tennessee shirt. And all these orange guys are coming up to me and they're high-fiving me. "Great game, man. Great game. Oh, that was the best. We had such a good game. That was so awesome." And, Indiana fans weren't all cranky and pissy about it or anything like that. It was just a really good sports environment, which you don't see that often. The next night, we were on our way back. We were in Raleigh at the Hurricanes game, and you could see it right away. It was the total opposite. They were playing the Capitals. There were a bunch of Capitals fans, and they were too drunk, and they were back and forth and in your face. And there was this girl in front of us flipping the bird left, right, and center and swearing and everything. I was like, you know what? Bring me back to the bowl game. It was so much better. But, I texted you, Paul, PNC Arena, not my favorite. They share it with North Carolina State. And the way, Carolina, the Hurricanes have had some success. They have won a Stanley Cup. They have retired, 3 numbers. But compared to North Carolina State, where they have a ton of ACC victories or ACC championships, they do have a national title. They have a big banner for every time they've made the tournament. They're kind of dwarfed, so it's like this game of dueling banners up there. And the way the roof works, it's not really a good scene to hang any of the banners. I don't know. It's not my favorite spot. The first time we had gone, there was like 8,000 people there. Now, I will give them credit. There were 18,000 people there this game. And loud. They came out, the Hurricanes come out, and the PA announcer says, welcome to, PNC Arena, the loudest fans in the NHL. And I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever. There's no way. And maybe they are, maybe they're not, but they were way better than I expected. That storm surge they did last year, plus the success that came with it, it really kind of revitalized that team. And, it's a good ticket. It's a fun time, so long as you're not sitting near the drunk Washington Capitals fans who are girls and flipping the bird at me for no reason. And that was it. Just a couple games.
How many total miles was that one?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Okay.
My poor car
not
is
as big as your Manitoba trip a couple years ago.
No, not quite. My car is going in tomorrow for a much needed oil change.
Yeah, I got to do that too. All right, so talking about the Hurricanes is a nice segue into our topic tonight, because just about a year ago, like you were saying, Dave, they weren't attracting anybody, and rumors were, where are the Hurricanes going to move to? They turned it around, but other teams haven't. Looking back, we've had teams leave in the middle of the night. Indianapolis, Mark. Teams play other cities against each other. We've had a lot of relocations, and we've got, 3 coming in the NFL this year, right?
Sort of.
Yeah, well, the 2 LA teams are moving to a different LA spot. But, all right, so 2 years ago, they moved to LA. We got Oakland moving. So when a team moves, let's start out with the obvious question. Whose fault is it?
That's a tough one, eh? There's no I think there's no clear-cut answer. If you look at the Los Angeles football situation, the NFL just wanted teams in Los Angeles, right? And they were going to do anything to get teams in Los Angeles. And I don't even think it was about stadiums or fans or whatever. It was about television.
I know I said I wasn't going to say anything. I said I wasn't going to say anything. I just wanted to throw this in here and then throw back to you guys to take this personally, because I'm watching the cluster F of the Flyers right now. It occurred to me that to answer the question Paul just asked, and like I said, you guys debated. I'm not going to interject again. I just need to get this off my chest before I throw something through my expensive television. It's on the fans at a certain point, and then it's on the ownership. For instance, 1975. Remember that year in hockey, that last year that the Flyers actually won a couple? Some of you remember, some of you weren't born yet. Were you guys born? It was
It was 1.
Okay, 1. Okay, I know Paul remembers.
I was 9, so kind of remember.
Pepperidge Farm remembers. 75. So be quick, and then I'm going to skip out again. 4 years. There was 1 or 2 years since then, maybe 3, up until the last year. We talk about attendance a lot as a factor, where the Flyers were no less than 7th in NHL attendance. This year, they have dropped to between 15th and 20th. I was talking to Kelly about this last night, and there's going to be another Flyers podcast coming out later on Sunday. That's too long to enact change. Like, I appreciate the loyalty to a team, but at a certain point, it is enabled this franchise to. I'm so tired of talking about. I love my team. I'm wearing a shirt now. For the video viewers, the Devils are PK wants to leave town. I don't want to hear your crap. My point is, and I understand what you mean, Mark. I'm just busting your chops.
It's not a Ranger shirt. It's not a Ranger shirt, but
exactly. That's why I can't hate you. So I get being loyal, and it's like people are like, "Well, the fans need to show up." Hold on a second. It's been 44 years. I'm tired of talking about the bullies. This is the short version. I'm tired of talking about the bullies. Real effing tired of talking about Eric Lindros. I'm extremely tired of talking about the 2010 comeback about the Bruins, because what happened after that? Nothing. So at a certain point, if your team is third last year, they were third last year, and they've dropped to around 15-20.
And they've got a playoff contending team this year.
Was that with renovations as well? Are they being priced out, the average fan?
Well, that's the thing. There's renovation. Look, my hair, it went from 2-1. My hair was okay. Now it's 4-3, and I'm like, ah! There's renovations. The prices went up. It's where the Caps were years ago. Just an example. And any other team. You can put any other team there.
Yeah, you can.
You can't do that and have no results. It's over. I don't care about Fat Kate Smith. I don't care about anything else in the past. I'm friggin' tired of talking about it. It's time to put up or shut up. And this is when the fans react. When they see the money stop coming, then they're going to figure it out. But I just wanted to throw that out there because it was literally, I was just talking about this last night. After 44 years, people stopped. We've had enough. Go ahead, Dave.
You got I think 2 other factors there in Philly too. You've got a very successful Eagles team.
Not this year.
You've got an up on the rise, Sixers team. There's only so many sports dollars kicking around, right? So, am I going to spend my sports dollars going to the Flyers, or am I going to go spend them?
No, exactly. You're absolutely right. Why am I? So for years, and I'm sure it's like that because football is the sport, and then I'm going to mute again and let you guys take over. I'm not going to interject again. For years, I lived there 27 years of my life. It was all about the Eagles, while the Sixers, the Flyers, and the Phillies were bringing championships to the team, to the city, and the Eagles were doing squat. And now that the Eagles have finally won, I got nothing. I can't argue it anymore. And like I said, after 45 years, I'm turning off games. I didn't turn off games last year when Hextall was the coach. And I'm like, I can't watch it. I can't do it. And don't even talk about the Phantoms. I don't even want to talk about the Phantoms. Anyway, I just want to interject. My opinion is it depends on if the team is doing good. Like if you're going to the playoffs and then falling short, and you're going to the playoffs and then falling short, and your fans aren't coming, the fans aren't interested. But if the team sucks and then the fans are not coming, that's on you. That's on you as an ownership and the front office and the team to figure out how to get the fans back. And let me just as quick PS, Gritty is not the problem. Whether you like or hate Gritty, the team should have a mascot. That's stupid to not have a mascot. But Gritty, Kate Smith, all that stuff I mentioned before. That doesn't matter. Figure out now. I'm so tired of talking about the past. I'm over it. I could only watch the Broad Street Bullies documentary so many times where I'm like, let's go. Anyway, gentlemen, just want to interject real quick. Goodbye.
Oh my.
Go for it, Mark.
Well, you know what? It's funny. I grew up with my grandfather when the Brooklyn Dodgers moved. He was done. He was not rooting for them. He never did root for another baseball team, as far as I know, because he passed away in 1964. So I don't know if he rooted for the Mets. But once they moved, that was it. My mother was also a Dodger fan, and she was done with the Dodgers as well. In 2005, I'm buying a ticket to see the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. And the young girl says, well, will this be tickets for two? My mom goes, no, I only root for the Brooklyn Dodgers, not the Los Angeles Dodgers. And this look of evil, all these years later, I mean, at the time, that was almost 50 years later, this poor little girl, she's like, I'm sorry. I'm sure she's heard that before. But yeah, my mom, no, was not rooting for the Dodgers. She became a Met fan. Not that she's a big sports fan, but she knows a little bit. She surprises me from time to time. But, but yeah, that was from her perspective. She was done. She wasn't rooting for the Dodgers. And, with me in 1995, the New Jersey Devils won the Stanley Cup. And at the same time, there was talk about the team moving to Nashville. And I don't know how close they were to moving. We were really excited about winning the cup. And I was watching a video from the hockey celebration in the parking lot of the Meadowlands, because that's how we do it. And there was a lot of signs saying Nashville sucks and heck no, we're staying in New Jersey. All this sentiment against Nashville. Now, at the time, Nashville did not have a pro team. They didn't have the Oilers. And we just thought that was ludicrous that a hockey team would even consider going to Nashville. But doing some research, they would have, John McMullen, who owned the team at the time and was a New Jersey native, he would have had a $20 million relocation bonus, a share of non-hockey events, so revenues, and he would have had a nice sweetheart lease deal. And I think his attitude at the time was the New Jersey Sports and Exhibition Authority, who controlled the Meadowlands Arena, Brendan Byrne, Continental Airlines, whatever it was called back then, he had a crummy lease with them. And his attitude was, I can go someplace else. They're going to give me what I want. And he finally made the deal to stay in New Jersey less than a month after the team won the Stanley Cup. And he did it out of his heart. And towards the end of his life, he said, hey, this was the right thing to do. So thank you, John. Appreciate you keeping the Devils. Because I don't know. I do not know if I would have rooted for the Nashville Devils. I don't know if they would have kept the name Devils. They could have called it the Predators. So that's a good what if. What if the Devils moved? Would I root for them? Or would I have gravitated towards another hockey team? I don't want to think that. So
there's tons of what ifs out there. You had the could have had the St. Louis Patriots. You could have had the Cleveland Canadians, for crying out loud. So
you could have had the Saskatchewan Blues win the Stanley Cup.
Right.
The Kansas City Islanders. I mean, and that's the thing with the Devils. I mean, they're like last on the totem pole of professional sports in the New York market. Even when the team was highly successful, it wasn't like they were getting a lot of attention on the radio. And when the Yankees or Giants or Mets are in the World Series, that's like all you talk about. When Devils are in the Stanley Cup, it's like big deal. But a lot of, it could have been very easy for John to move to Nashville. Very easy, because he would have owned the town. I don't know. They would have had a great team, Scott Stevens, Marty Brodeur, Scotty Niedermayer. They would have had a built-in winner going to Nashville. And, we saw how they partied for the Stanley Cup recently. They could have been doing that in 2000 down Broadway. So, it's, I had forgotten about that. I had not even thought about that until we started talking about the relocation. I thought about the Brooklyn Dodgers, and then I'm like, wait a minute, the Devils almost moved or threatened to move. Yeah, lunacy to think. 25 years ago that happened, which is even crazier to think that's how long it's been.
Go ahead,
Well,
Dave.
we could have something very similar happening in Ottawa right now. right? We have the Senators, who are dead last in attendance at about 11,000 a game. We have an owner who has ostracized the fan base by not re-signing the favorite sons.
The old scorched earth policy. Yeah, we
Right.
can talk about that in a minute.
They're not very good. The owner has, rightly or wrongly, come out and said, well, we're going to be competitive again in about 4 years. So there is a lot of anger with Eugene Melnyk. The arena is way out of town. It's more of an NFL stadium kind of location. It's far from downtown. It's hard to get to. It's not the greatest arena. It's not terrible. Like, here's the recipe. Combine that with, a city that has a poor corporate base, because Ottawa being a government town, government regulations state that, companies cannot give government employees perks like hockey tickets. So you got that fighting against you. And the arena deal they're trying to make is stuck in this legal quagmire. Whose fault is this all going to be? A little bit of everybody. I mean, one of the things that I tell my friends from Ottawa is, like, guys, you don't get it. I know the team's bad and everything, and you don't like the owner, but you got to show up. Otherwise, they're going to be out of there, right? Like, and there's this arrogance that, at one point, Gary Bettman said they won't be moving the team. And I'm like, are you kidding me? He would love to move that team from Ottawa. I'm positive. But, you have two different sort of ways this can all go about. So you have like the Cleveland Browns or Baltimore Colts situation where, the moving trucks show up in the middle of the night, and before anyone knows it, boom, the team's gone. Or you can have like the Expos, which was like pulling the Band-Aid off one hair at a time, where every year they were going to move, and then they were owned by the league, and they couldn't find anybody to own it, and there was nobody there. It was so bad. And with the Expos, what killed the fans? The strike in '94. There was the best team in Expos history, the best team in the league. Everybody in Montreal anyway expected them to go on and at least to the World Series, maybe win the World Series. You had future Hall of Famers like Pedro Martinez on that team. Hopefully future Hall of Famers like Larry Walker on that team. And, after '94, and they just couldn't afford that team anymore. Boom, boom, boom. All the pieces start to disappear. They go here, they go there. And it's not the same. And you add to it this culture piece where, the fans in Montreal look at the Expos still as like an English thing. And like these English people are, down in the States are taking our team away from us. Not to mention the worst stadium in the history of sports, possibly. But I'd love to say that it's, owners' faults or greedy owners' faults, like Stan Kroenke, who moved the Rams, but it's not always. Art Modell had tons of opportunities. He gave the city of Cleveland so many opportunities to keep the team. He helped Jacobs build Jacobs Field. He helped Gund build Gund Arena. And when it came time for his turn, it wasn't there. And he finally said, forget it. We're out of here.
Okay, so two other aspects of this whole process that I want to touch on while we're still going here is the way teams, and that seems to be a big factor. And the second one is kind of a then to our if statement. So once this process, like
can you
said,
repeat the first one?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry if I cut out there. Teams playing cities off of each other to get sweetheart deals. And then the second part is kind of a then to the if statement. When the rumors start, and this is what happened in Montreal, rumors start, or you get strung along, the fans stop showing up. And that never seems to work out the way you want it to. So I want to talk about teams playing cities off each other. Think about the Tropicana Dome in Tampa. That was built because they wanted a team. So at first, I think it was it Chicago or San Francisco that was going to move there, but twice, two teams used that stadium as leverage to get new ballparks in their city. Mark.
Yeah, and well, Chicago, the White Sox threatened for many years to move, but Tampa Bay was one of the places. Now, when the Tropicana Dome was built in 1990, 2 years later, the new San Francisco Giants announced they were moving. In fact, I think they played the Mets the last day of the 92 season. And I remember the broadcast was all about this was the last game in San Francisco or the last game for the San Francisco Giants. It was a done deal. They were moving. And then at the last minute, they were saved and remained in San Francisco because they had an old ballpark that was situated outside of town that was too big for the club. And they built the beautiful, what's it called now? Whatever the name is now.
I don't know what the new name is.
Oracle?
No,
Oracle,
Park?
Safeco, Channel
Oracle
Lumber Ballpark, ShopRite, I don't know. So they built it, and it's been a success. But back in the night, you Stop and Shop. But back in the 1960s, Oakland, the Oakland Coliseum debuted, and they had the Raiders, but they're like, hey, we want a baseball team. Who wants to move here? So Charlie O'Finley, who was in Kansas City, should have stayed in Kansas City. Oh, I'll move there, and he realized it was a bad choice to go to Oakland, and all these years later, the stadium is still around for a baseball team, and they're still trying to get out of it. So, stadiums were built to lure teams, and that happened first with the Milwaukee Brewers the Milwaukee Braves when they attracted the Boston Braves, and everybody's like, oh, this is a cool thing we can do now. Let's give them a sweetheart deal. Let's have the stadium paid by the municipality. And boom, we saw Dodger Stadium, we saw Candlestick Park, we saw Minnesota build a stadium and Washington move, and then Washington got an expansion team. So, yeah, it's stadiums playing off each other, and it's the taxpayers who are fitting the bill. So, depends how you look at it,
When's enough? But Dave, you got a point.
Well, here are two franchises that, or two cities anyway, that went about it in a very similar way, and they had different results. So if you remember back to Hurricane Katrina, which actually absolutely decimated New Orleans, both the Saints and I guess it was the Hornets at the time,
Hornets, yeah,
were displaced. So the Hornets moved to Oklahoma City for the time being. The city totally gravitated to the Hornets, which ended up leading to, the Seattle Supersonics moving to Oklahoma City, right?
Have you guys ever seen, sorry, Dave, that 30 for 30 about the Supersonics?
Ooh,
That's a great one. Watch that sometime.
I think I've seen that.
Or was that Sonic Gate? Did they do it? Was that from
that one?
ESPN?
I saw. Sonic, I think it was
Sonic Gate is
That's
excellent.
the one. That's the one.
Yeah. Yes, that was good. Yes.
Sorry.
It's amazing that people in Seattle actually still drink Starbucks coffee after that. So.
Yeah, that was that's a whole another story we can do. Sonic.
But the other one,
Yeah.
Other than Oklahoma City, was San Antonio.
Yep.
Because San Antonio was where the Saints moved. And how many NFL teams have talked about moving to San Antonio? Tons. I think Oakland alone has used it like 5 or 6 times.
They're going to move to every
And
city.
San Antonio has gotten to the point where their state-of-the-art Alamo Dome has never really had a major tenant and is now no longer state-of-the-art.
Spurs.
I think the heartstrings tugged at the Saints, who probably would have moved to San Antonio. And I think Tom Benson wanted to move. But, ripping this team out of this war-torn, area, hurricane-torn, I guess not war-torn, but, it was gonna kill this thing, and the league just couldn't do it because nobody would, everybody be up in arms. And, Tom Benson ended up staying. He ended up I think after he ended up actually buying the Hornets and bringing them part of his ownership group, and then eventually changing them to the Pelicans. But there's two examples of cities that went about it in the exact same way, totally different results.
Yeah, I think the Alamo Dome was built to attract an NFL team because that was right before the major expansion. I think 1993 is when they announced it, Jacksonville and Carolina. So, yeah, after a while, that stadium sits and it has not had any major renovations. It was the home of the Spurs. Could you imagine having a team playing an indoor facility? I know it was done commonly in the 70s and 80s, but it's had a lot of spring football league teams, but never an NFL team. And
I think the CFL played there actually.
The CFL had a team in '95, the San Antonio Texans. So you could also play baseball in there. They've also held some exhibition baseball games in there. So but I can't imagine that's the case, but it's just one of those stadiums. It's there, but it doesn't have that major tenant. And they would love the Raiders. They would have loved the Saints. So I'm glad they stayed in New Orleans. It was the right decision.
Okay, so here's a question, gentlemen. When is enough enough? How do we break the cycle of teams using cities, using tax dollars on professional play?
I think it starts where we saw in Seattle where they had just renovated the Key Arena in '95. Then all of a sudden they're told about 12, 13 years later, oh yeah, this isn't state of the art. You got to build a new one. And I think a lot of people in Seattle were ticked off by that. So they didn't want to have another stadium built. They felt like the money should be used for something else. We saw that after the team moved to Oklahoma City, Seattle almost got the Sacramento Kings, and that's when their mayor stepped in and made sure that didn't happen. They built a very brand new state-of-the-art facility, which I was shocked to see that happen. I don't know. I can't think of a city off the top of my head that's like, okay, move, we don't care. In one of the major four sports, maybe in the minor leagues, we can see that. But I think a lot of, especially if that team's been there for years and generations have grown up watching it, you don't want to see the team move, but you also don't want to be pushed around. I think Montreal would definitely love the Expos back. We see that when the Toronto Blue Jays come in and play exhibition games. And they probably should come back in some form, whether it's in an Olympic Stadium renovated or whether it's at a brand new facility. I would hope they would get a brand new facility because I think Olympic Stadium is well past its prime as anything functional as, just a,
anything.
Concert. Yeah, anything. I was there in 2001 to see a game, and they had about 15,000 fans only because Quebec native Eric Gagne was pitching for the Dodgers, and that's when he was a starter. He wasn't even a reliever yet. And it was just such a surreal experience watching a game there way back when. And I knew that probably be one of the last times I would see a game in Montreal. And that was sad to think that.
I had a couple of games like that in Montreal, but they were Gary Carter bobblehead days. And Gary Carter was there. And, when Gary Carter's there,
you don't have to tell me about Gary
shows
Carter.
Up. It was like 30,000.
Oh, wow.
But still, that place held, probably 60,000.
Mm-hmm.
So it was still cavernous. The one city that's kind of jumping out at me is St. Louis with the Rams.
Yeah.
Where, Kroenke kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And I don't think the Rams were ever going to stay in St. Louis. And I don't think St. Louis was ever going to give them what they wanted. I just read somewhere the XFL is going to pay 2 times what the Rams were paying per
I find that hard to believe.
In rent.
Wow.
Well, here's the thing.
Do they attract the crowds?
Were they taking the Rams in originally on a sweetheart deal? Oh yeah, we really want the Rams, so Yeah, sure. You guys can
Oh.
play for like pennies on the dollar. That no problem. You know, we'll cover all the overhead. We'll cover this. We'll cover that. And you know, we sometimes we talk about. You were talking about, you know, a poor lease for the Devils.
Yeah.
Right. Works both ways. I mean, you could get a poor lease for the city too. So, you know, that's the one that kind of jumps out at me. Some places, you know, there's no way they're ever leaving, right? Like Rudy Giuliani on his exit, he had to, I don't know exactly what he did to sort of pass funding for the Yankees and the Yankees and the Mets to get their stadiums.
Well, geez, guys, we picked
you know,
this subject because we thought that it would be a nice quick one. I have a feeling we could probably talk for a couple more hours about this, but we're not going to put our listeners through that. We're going to call it. Maybe we'll come back to this subject sometime soon. It's been a lot of fun. I want to Twitch right now and are putting up and getting to see all the behind the scenes shenanigans. Dan, real quick, where can our listeners follow you?
Oh gosh, follow me at danlaw83. I'll be working on this one for a while.
Oh man, and I apologize for my part in that. Mark, any stadium journeys planned for you, and where can our listeners follow you?
Yes, on January 14th, I'll be at the Butler men's basketball game. January 18th, Purdue Fort Wayne men's basketball game. Go Mastodons. And on January 24th, I'll be at the United Center for the Chicago Bulls game. You can follow all of that on Twitter or Instagram or on YouTube at Ballpark Hunter. Just type it in, follow me, subscribe, and you'll see videos, reviews, and just me eating food probably, you know, because I need to eat more food. So, yeah, all that and then some.
Dave, how about you? Any stadium journeys planned for the upcoming fortnight, and where can our listeners follow you?
well, you'd think that I'd be all stadiumed out, but you'd be thinking wrong. So OUA hockey and basketball kicks back into gear with the new year. So it's some Wilfrid Laurier Golden Hawks hockey and basketball. I will be also heading to the University of Waterloo for a basketball review at the physical activities complex, and they've just had a bit of a renovation, so we'll hit that up for the site. And then the following week, it will be at the Raptors, Toronto Raptors. Lloyd Brown is trying to do his Club 123 thing, and he's going to be up in Toronto for the Raptors and the Leafs. So I'm going to meet him up on the at the Raptors game, and then it's going to be to Mount Pleasant, Michigan, where you could find Central Michigan University, home of the Chippewas, and I'm going to take in some basketball there. And you can follow all of that on Twitter and Instagram at Profan9.
And as for myself, I'll be staying local for the next couple of weeks before we go on our big trip to LA. What's on tap for me? We got the Providence Bruins, the Boston Pride, and UMass Dartmouth basketball. So I'll be working. If you want to call announcing basketball games work, yeah, I'm working. You can follow all my stadium journeys on Twitter or Instagram at PuckmanRI. And join us all again here on the podcast on January 21st, when we will be joined by Peter Baxter, the athletic director at Wilfrid Laurier University, to talk about what goes into running an athletic department. In the meantime, check out our website, stadiumjourney.com. Follow us on Twitter or Instagram at Stadium Journey. Join our Facebook page. You can find the Stadium Journey podcast and all of HIAC Talk Radio's other great content at thebradyhicks.com, or watch all the Talk Radio, HIAC Talk Radio podcasts on YouTube at youtube.com/danlaw83. Follow HIAC Talk Radio at HIAC Talk Radio, just like it sounds. And for Dan Colachico, for Mark Vicaz, and for Dave Cotney, I'm Paul Baker, wishing you all close games, safe journeys, happy holidays, and a good internet connection.